Welcome to the Chronically Will podcast, where we hold real conversations with community that need to be heard. On this episode, I have the honor of speaking with Amanda. And before we get started, Amanda, I do want to apologize for having to reschedule, but thank you for being okay with that. I know how much, we're all adults, we're all professionals. And I just want to make sure that it didn't seem as though I was basically off the rocker.
No, not at all. I'm very flexible and I completely understand. I mentioned to you, things come up. It's life. It happens. All good. And thank you so much for letting me know as well.
You're welcome. And off that note, Amanda, I don't have any notes here about you. And I chalk that up to you wanting to let the people know who you are. Amanda.
Yes,
the floor is yours.
Awesome. So my name is Amanda. I am born and raised in Los Angeles. I have been a diabetic now for 28 years. This year will be 28th year in December, which is it's pretty amazing, to think that I've been a diabetic for that long. And it's been a journey. It's definitely been a journey. I was diagnosed when I was 9 years old. And I remember everyone in my family was sick. Everyone had a flu. Everyone was cold. I was the only one who didn't get better. My mother took me to see my pediatrician, and he's like, you need to take her to, the hospital immediately. And I spent a week at Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles. And, that's where my journey began as a diabetic. In the beginning, lots of confusion. I knew no one with that was a diabetic, even probably throughout my teenage years. So the idea of community was very far-fetched. I didn't really understand or grasp the idea or understand how important the idea of community was until I, till I was in my 30s. So, as I mentioned, it was a very lonely, moment for me. I think, or many years for me. Did
you just say you didn't know or didn't get an aspect of what community was until you were in your 30s?
In my 30s.
Now, looking at you from right here, I'm like, Amanda looks like this young lady who's just college bound and everything. So, yes, the ancestors have blessed you with that.
Yeah, it was very, and I think it was just because I knew no one that I could relate to or talk with, you know what I mean? So once I was in my 30s, and obviously with social media, there's so much exposure to so many different things. And that was just a blessing in disguise for me because I was able to connect with so many different people. And, once I was doing just manual shots for a while, I got back on a insulin pump and a CGM. And I think that's when my world kind of shifted and changed.
You're from the LA area?
Yes.
You're the third person I've recorded with over maybe the last 6 or 7 days that are from the LA area.
Mm-hmm.
And just off your name, I'm not going to say what it is. Your last name, will block that out. But you're the second person I've recorded with that last name.
Interesting.
What is your family background, ethnicity?
So my mother is El Salvadorian, and my father's Puerto Rican.
Okay, because like I said, I actually recorded with someone maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. Same last name, Puerto Rican from Brooklyn or the Bronx, one of them.
Okay.
Another young lady, same first name.
Mm-hmm.
No, the first one was the first name from the Bronx. Second one, a couple days ago, same last name, Puerto Rican from LA area.
Interesting. That would be interesting if we were connected somehow.
Right. She doesn't know anyone else in her family with diabetes. She was the first. Well, she did just. Her nephew was diagnosed at 22 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. So,
yeah, I had learned further down the line that my dad's sister, she was a type 2. And that was like the only other person like in my family that I learned of that had diabetes.
Mhm. So I do want to get to know you as a person, even beyond diabetes, because this conversation
Hmm.
that we have is it's organic, but I want to get to know you as a person. Diabetes, I have it, you have it, we all have it. Like Oprah gave it out as a gift. Like you get diabetes, not me. Like I would have ran from this diabetes train long ago if I could. Um, but yeah, you said 28. You've been diabetic for 28 years, but I do want to get to know you before all that. So I did take a glimpse at your Instagram. Usually I don't do any of that, but considering I had no notes about you,
Hmm.
um, I am a master visual artist.
Okay.
Like even like as early as I can remember, I've been getting like rewards for visual arts. I've always done like realism art,
Hmm.
and I paint in oils and acrylics and everything. And when I viewed your Instagram, I get in my head, I mean, I don't know the truth to this. I say graphic artist. Do you delve into graphic art?
Not at all. I
Not
do.
at
I have
all.
not at all. I have a huge appreciation for graphic art in general. I do have like a creative background.
Okay.
My mother, she sewed. She went to actually to fashion design school when
Hmm.
she was in El Salvador, and so she's had a huge impact on me as an individual. Just like growing up, she exposed me to the arts. So I would take animation classes. We would like go together to like this local craft store and like take classes together and like make things. And I went to fashion design school. And so my dream was to have my own fashion line, but I actually went the e-com route. So I've been working in the fashion industry now for a little over 15 years. So I started in retail, and then I got my first corporate job back in, this was in 09. 2007 was
Hmm.
like my first like corporate job in the fashion industry, and it was amazing. It just exposed me to so much. I met so many just great creative people, so I've just like stayed in that creative world. But again, as I mentioned, just kind of pivoted to the e-com route, and it's been great. It's been a blessing. I've been with the company that I'm at now for close to 10 years. So close to 10 years. And I'm actually looking into to pivoting to a completely different industry, which is speech pathology. So I've always felt like I've been called to serve. That's what I feel like my calling is. And so I'm just, I feel like it's never too late to kind of, to start something new.
Right.
It's never.
We know
Mhm.
as far as like education and the learning process, it's something that's forever ongoing. It never ceases, never ends. Every second of every waking day, we learn something new. And like it sounds like you had an amazing time in the career that you've been in for the last 10 plus years in fashion design, as you said, in e-commerce. I've never even heard that all put together in one. Fashion design, e-commerce. But I am going to get into that. But as a working in speech pathology also is a great calling, something that's in dire need, and it shows that, I mean, you had fun. I'm pretty sure a lot of
Mhm.
fun in the corporate in this world that you've been in. And I don't hear too many people say that. Like, you've been in the corporate industry and you've been having fun. Who let you have fun working in this corporate field for so long? Like, nah, like button up and
But it's also, I mean, that definitely has its ups and downs. It's definitely been,
Mhm.
huge learning experience for me, just working with different, people and just like the learning process and being able to collaborate so closely with like different departments and being exposed to so much. It's been a journey. It's definitely been a journey, but I kind of see it as closing one chapter, starting a new one, starting a new path, and I'm just really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to just something like fresh and new, and just see. And as I mentioned, like I just feel like I've been called to serve the world in some way, and I just want to listen to that calling and just kind of like make that into like my new reality.
Now, how did you decide that you wanted to go from that type of job to speech pathologist? Because
So,
they are nowhere near, like, one doesn't lead into the other at
mhm.
all. So I'm wondering, first off, is Amanda that kid who's like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then somewhere in between, you're like, oh, I can save that and that, and like many of us are like that as kids. Like we start off with like the lemonade stand, and then the next thing you know, we're like helping out with the neighbors and building a garden and
Mhm.
all of those things.
Definitely. I'm a creature of habit. So, I think pivoting to something completely different is it's going to be a huge change for me. But going back to my mother, she's always been, as I mentioned, just a huge influence on me in my life. My mother, even though she went to fashion design school in El Salvador, when she left her country and she came here, after a few years of just settling in, she ended up going to school for child development. So my mother worked with handicapped children from the age of 0 to 3 for over 30
Mhm.
years. And I would go with her. She would do like kind of like in-home visits. So I would go with her if she wasn't done with her visits after school, and I would accompany her. And I would just kind of like wait in the living room or wait somewhere in the dining room as she, had her therapy sessions with the children. And it was just even though I was so young, it was just very impactful to see, the impact that she made on their lives. And she was so passionate about what she did. She always had just such a great relationship and connection with the parents. And because she worked with a lot of minorities,
Mhm.
um, that was like the main kind of like demographic that her company would cater to. I saw like just the lack of knowledge on their end. Like there was so much that they didn't know, and that just stayed with me. That always stayed with me. Like those visits, like those memories that I have of my mom. Like it's just stayed with me forever. So I always knew. I mean, again, like I said, I'm creative by nature. I love being around creative people. It moves me, it inspires me, but I also just feel like there's more to give. So I was kind of in between occupational therapy and speech pathology, but I have a nephew who's autistic. He was actually diagnosed a couple of years ago, and this speech pathologist who's worked with him, like I've seen how she's made a huge impact on his life,
Mhm.
and I think that was kind of like that moment, for me where that light bulb turned on, and I'm like, I think this is what I need to do. Like this is just like my calling. So I know very different worlds,
Look,
very, very different worlds.
look, you just sold me on to it though. Like it is truly amazing. I know growing up, I think from like sixth through eighth grade, I went to a bilingual or duolingual school, and there was like half the school were children who had I guess what you would consider migrated here. But yeah, so it was like half Hispanic, half African American. Like the school like was split down in the center. We would like the way that it was almost like a therapeutic measure, I guess, because we would like take classes together so that we could assist others, like assist them with learning the language from peers. Because I don't know why, but like if you've grown up with someone who didn't speak the language that you spoke, like if you have the same kind of things that you're interested in, like as kids,
Mhm.
12, 13, like that's what I was, 11, 12, 13. Like just because we had some of the same interests, it helped in them also learning the language, the English language, as we just did things on a normal basis, like together.
Mhm.
And I know as a speech pathologist, like the therapeutic measures that are put in play do strongly help and benefit not only the individual that's going through it, but their families, their
Mhm.
peers, everyone.
Mhm. Exactly. And And I don't know, I just feel like there's a need. And as you mentioned, like even there being like a need for speech therapists, that I did research, even before I kind of like made my decision, I did a lot of research and there's a huge need for speech. There's like a shortage of speech pathologists. I was researching, there's like certain states where there's a larger need, versus California isn't on that list, but there's other states where there's like a need for it. So I'm just really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to learning. I like to consider myself someone who is just always just interested in learning and growing. Like, and I think it's important to keep that growth mindset, because there's just so much to experience and to learn. And, we live in such crazy times now. And, just being able to help somebody, even if it's just a couple of people, I think that'll make me feel like, my time here, it's been well spent. You know what I mean? And I did what I needed to do as a human being, as a person. So
Yeah. Understood. Um, you're a true empath at heart, correct?
yes, I
Yes,
am.
yes, yes. I can feel it. Like,
hmm
you're my type of people.
hmm
You did speak about your mom. So, how many did you grow up with multiple siblings?
Yes, so there's four of us. I'm the baby of the family, and there's a 10-year gap between me and my sister. And I always tell my mom, I'm like, "What were you thinking?
Mhm.
Like you were 39 when you had me. What were you thinking?" My siblings are very close in age, so but I had a great childhood. I like to think, we moved to different places. So I grew up in Compton, California. Then from there, we just kind of moved further east. And so I've been exposed to a lot of different just environments. We've always had like really great relationships with our neighbors and like the kids coming over. Everyone, called my mom. She was just like the neighborhood mom, and it was great. I have a great relationship with my siblings as well, even though there's like that gap.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so there was four of us in total, and my father, he actually passed when I was 12. So right, just a few weeks from my 13th birthday, my father had passed from cancer. And so, my mom, she's been my rock. I have a very close relationship with her, actually, take care of her. And, I love her to death. So even to this day, my mother's in her 70s and she's still like just going strong. And I just admire her on so many different levels. She's raised probably every single child in our family, all my cousins' kids. It's been incredible. So, just very thankful to have her as like a role model and someone that I look up to. And as I mentioned, she just really inspired like just who I am, today, and like just the career path that I've taken.
Yeah, I'm sorry for your father's transitioning at such a young age. Um, I it just made me think of like what I said, being 12 or 13 in school with friends, and just to think of if something like that would have occurred to me at that age, I don't know how I would have dealt with it. But it seems as though your mother is the strength and the backbone that kept everyone afloat during this torrential downpour that did occur. And yeah, I love to honor our people. So I'm gonna give this moment just to honor your father. He's not here, but Dad, I know you're walking with your child each and every day, seeing grandchildren grow up, seeing the smiles and the imitations of your own likeness. And I'm pretty sure your family see it as well. So even though we pass and we transition in the physical, spiritually, they'll always be here beside us as we grow. And keep on walking beside us and just keeping that same smile on her face.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's all it's the truth.
hmm
You spoke about like your mother's 70 plus years old today,
hmm
and she's still moving and vibrant. And though she had to pick up those pieces, and she probably never sat down since then.
No, she didn't.
No.
I think not until now. Like I have to remind her, I'm like, Mom, we're all grown. You're good. Like just,
Mhm.
take it easy. But she's just, I know it has a lot to do with like her upbringing and like, how she saw like my grandma like always working and moving. So she's just one of those, just, I call her like one of those OGs. She just has an OG soul. And, she's, I think until the day, my mother passes, she will continue to just be of service, in any way that she can.
Look, she's an OG in Compton. Well, are you still in Compton? Or OG in
No.
Compton? Okay, I'm about to say she's the original gangster. like she was up there teaching Easy E and how to
Not anymore.
look.
I was maybe like second, third grade when we moved from Compton.
Okay,
So, but
because the young lady I was telling you with the same last name, she lives in. No, she doesn't live in, but she grew up in LBC.
okay.
Yeah, Long
Yeah, not
Beach,
too
Compton.
far.
Yeah, yeah. You may have ran into each other off air. I'll actually ask you if you know her.
Yeah, no, definitely. That'll be
Yeah,
great to see if we're connected somehow.
look, I've actually recorded with. So you're the third in 2 weeks from that LA area, Latino, from that
Hmm.
area. So yeah, I believe that we all need our community.
Hmm.
So I do strongly hope that off air I can share the information with you so y'all can form your own group
Yeah,
because
definitely.
as we move and maneuver through in life, like it's always best to be able to see other people that look like us and
Hmm.
also, just to be able to reach out and have conversations, meetups, all of those things, because everything doesn't have to be as our Instagram feeds show us
Hmm.
how it looks across that line.
Hmm. No, I agree. And like, just again, just touching on that topic of community, like, I didn't understand like the importance of it until I got into my 30s. And once I started connecting with people that I'm like, oh my goodness, like you and I, we share very similar experiences, or, just someone to talk to about just like the day-to-day struggles. It was so refreshing, but, again, it had a lot to do, I think, just with how I grew up and just like resources that I felt like were so limited. My mother, she only could do so much, you know what I mean? And she did the best that she could. So, it's just been a great, I'm glad that I've been able to kind of, tap into, that world of community and even connecting with someone like you, and just seeing like what you've done, to just kind of shed that light, which is so important. It's so, so important.
We are important. And don't let anyone ever tell you that we are not important because everything matters, but especially representation that we don't typically see
Hmm.
matters because there's little brown boys and little brown girls out there that are maybe newly diagnosed parents of newly diagnosed children, and all they need is that one person to show them that my child will be able to grow up with this chronic health condition and become go to fashion school, become a corporate what's the title? Corporate no
Ecom.
ecom look
Yeah.
and then also think of doing things such as therapeutic measures that will help other people like
Hmm.
yeah
Yeah.
all they need is that need you.
No, definitely. And again, it's just like, a few years ago, I actually started, I'm in the process of forming a nonprofit myself, but I started as a business. And it was after my son, who was actually diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And so I had put on my first community event 2 years ago. And it was so moving. It was so, so moving. And it was something that I did. I wanted to look at this as as a project, something that I wanted to pour my heart and my love into. I didn't want to put that extra pressure on myself because you know how that goes, right? Just adding that extra pressure. And I was able to connect with so many different people. And I saw just the impact of just like telling our stories, like telling, I had a few panelists that, talked about their experience as a diabetic. And I was just like, it was amazing. So I am looking to pour like more love and time into that this year and, hopefully put on a few more community events myself for people that look like you and I, which like you touched on it, like representation is really important. So, and why not combine, kind of like something that I love, which is kind of like that artistic world, creative world with a topic such as diabetes, So I felt like I did a great job at kind of like merging the two, and it was great. It was powerful. So yeah, looking forward to just pouring more love into that this year.
You're doing everything that's needed to normalize what it is living with diabetes, because we know it's so stigmatized, and it's like no matter how much we tell people it's not this, it's not that, no matter what, it's still this huge stigma being placed upon, and that's mostly because of the inaccuracy of media's perception on things such as diabetes. Uh, Diabetes is and can be genetic, hereditary, type 1 and type 2, both. And no person that's living with this chronic condition want to have it. And
Mhm.
at the same time, we wouldn't wish it upon our worst enemy, because we know the day-to-day struggles that do ensue with living with this condition. Now, you said your son was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, my youngest, he was
How,
diagnosed with type 2.
how old was he?
He was 9. We were actually the
Mhm.
same age, which was like it was wild. I'm like, how literally same age, 9 years old, he was diagnosed, and it was tough. I think I put a lot of blame on myself for that, and it was we spent a week, in the hospital, and he's been doing great thus far, but it was tough, especially, being so young, and now we live in different times. If you think about it, there's a lot of, social media influence, like things that you and we didn't have to deal with that as kids, you know what I mean? So it was a little easier in that sense for you and I, but for my son, it's a lot of different pressures that I feel like today's youth are experiencing. But, I've done my best to just tell him, you can still do whatever it is that you want to do. He has so many different aspirations. He wants to be a chef one day. He wants to own his own clothing line. He wants to do so much. And I tell both of my kids, I'm like, I support whatever it is that you want to do. Like, I'm here to support you.
Mhm.
You should never feel like anything should limit you, whether it's race, whether it's a medical condition, whether it's, finances. There's always room, there's room for everyone, just again, it's about consistency. It's about like that passion and, just blocking out that outside noise. So that's what I've been doing as a role as, a mother. And also just to be a role model to them, to my son, with living with diabetes, that you can still do all the normal things that everyone else can. It's just that, there has to be some extra care and, careful monitoring of your health. You know what I mean? But aside from that, you can still do it all.
Right. And also tell him we grew up in an era where Master P told us no limit, like, serious, like we no limit soldiers.
Yes, exactly.
Like seriously. You said he was diagnosed with type. This I've never met a child that was diagnosed so early with type 2.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I know that you did mention you having a family history of type 2 diabetes, so
Hmm.
that does take into consideration also. Have you and has your son gone through like the auto antibody testing as he's gotten
Not y-
older?
not yet, just because it's only been a couple of years. I know they did do some extensive testing in the beginning just to kind of, figure out, is it type 1 or is it type 2?
Mhm.
But I guess that the characteristics that they were seeing based off of the results were, it was more in line with type 2 diabetes. But they did, the doctors have told me that there is a possibility of it turning into type 1 later on down the line. So,
Right, because the light bulb that went off in my head was I've met many people who were diagnosed type 2 even younger ages, like 12, 13, 14.
mhm,
But come to find out, many years they were living with LADA. And
mhm.
and when auto antibody testing was done 10, 12 years later, come to find out they had markers that were for type 1.
Got it.
That
Okay.
yeah. So just wanted to put that out there in space, and just in case you have not, if just to know that that does exist,
Hmm.
to get tested for those markers. And yeah, so it's also telling me that you're telling your son like he can be any and everything he can be, because I mean we know that his mom is exploring everything. Grandma explored everything. Look, and there's no limits. Like I said,
Hmm.
yeah. You have one other child.
Yes, I have another son, my oldest.
Okay.
Hmm.
How old are your children today?
So my oldest is 14, and then my youngest now he's 13.
Okay, so they're a year apart. Are
About a
they
yeah, year and a half apart.
are they close or distant?
They are. No, they
It's like one
are.
or the other.
Yeah, no, they are. I mean, they grew up. I mean, they're so close in age, so they've literally done everything together. They
Mhm.
have their moments, just like all siblings. You know what I mean? Very different personalities. My youngest, he's definitely he has, such great just energy about him. He loves to be busy. He loves to explore. He loves to try new things out. Definitely a little bit more of a daredevil. And my oldest is definitely more calm. He's more calm. He can be home playing video games and he would be happy. But yeah, very different personalities.
And he's 14.
Yeah,
What
he's
is he
14.
in eighth grade?
He's in high school.
Oh, he's
He's
in
a
ninth. So my oldest is in ninth grade as well.
Oh,
And when you
okay.
say he could just video games, yep, that's my son.
I I
That's
have to. I'm
all.
like, listen, we gotta like pull away a little bit from the TV. I love to just go out and explore. Like I'm all about nature. I will, if invite me out on a hike, and I will be there. So I'm like, I tell them all the time, like, let's just get out the house, let's breathe some fresh air. I currently work remote, so I'm home all the time. So just like getting out, it's such a treat for me. So I always try to get them out and just explore and be busy because of course, that's so important, especially these days.
Right. Just being one with the earth in
Hmm.
general, just being able to breathe in the air, even though you're in LA. So it's a bit different. I mean, even here, I'm in the Northeast, I'm in the Philadelphia region. We got same air. Like,
That's so
yeah,
funny.
yeah.
My dad actually, he moved to Philly from Puerto Rico. When he left Puerto
Okay.
Rico, he was in Philly for many, many years before he moved out here to the West Coast.
Was that
So we,
before you were born?
yes, yeah, before he met my mom, but yeah, we still have family up that way, like Philly, Virginia. We have
Okay.
family up that way still.
Okay. And your dad is Puerto Rican?
Puerto Rican, yeah.
Okay, I have some Puerto Rican family. Let me
Oh,
jot that
nice.
down to see if we're related also.
I know, right? We have to do that
Cousin.
ancestry. We might
Look,
be. Yeah, and I'm actually not too connected with my father's family. So, if when I do, if I happen to meet a Puerto Rican here in LA, I get super excited and I'm like asking so many questions, like maybe we're cousins.
so did you grow up more with the El Salvador background from your
Mhm.
mother?
Yeah,
So,
definitely more dominant. My mother's culture was more dominant, especially being here in LA, where there is, it's a large community of Central Americans in general
mhm.
here. So definitely more dominant in the household. But my mom did her best to incorporate my dad's culture. She would cook up some of those like traditional Puerto Rican dishes for him, and she exposed us to as much as she could, like within her reach, which was great. So.
I really wanted to know like about your culture, especially how it connects to like someone being or someone living with diabetes, because we know that culturally things are looked at differently, like
Mhm.
especially being the young age that you were diagnosed.
Yeah, so I mean, my mother, for the most part, she did the best that she could with dishes that she cooked. If we had like a traditional Salvadorian dish, it was because we went to a restaurant, or maybe it was like a holiday and she made like Salvadorian tamales, which is a treat for my family in general. Um, but in terms of how it was looked at, I mean, I feel like she cooked as healthy as she could. She definitely switched a lot of things up. in the household. So we were definitely eating more greens. I can't really recall a time where we just ate poorly though, like as a family in general, because, my mother, she always cooked just home cooked meals. Like even in the morning, she would make breakfast. Yes, we had to switch things out instead of regular syrup, get the sugar-free syrup and like little things like that. Um, she cooks a few traditional dishes that are like key in our household. But for the most part, I feel like, it was no one in my family treated me differently. Like it was just like normal. Like we're treating Amanda as a normal person. We're just going to be a little bit more mindful, right? Like about some of the things that we eat or places, how often we, go out and eat. But for the most part, I feel like, there was really no difference. And there was, yes, some changes, but not a lot of huge changes, I would say. If anything, like it kind of helped my family in a sense kind of shift their mindset and just everyone started eating better and healthier.
Now, when you were diagnosed at 9 years old, did your family know that there was a such thing even as type 1 diabetes? Because
No.
most people are like didn't know, and most people who had type 1 diabetes at young ages, they didn't even know they had type 1 diabetes. They just knew they had diabetes.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say no, because a lot of, people that my family, if they knew someone that was a diabetic, they were probably like over 40 or 50 and maybe overweight. So to have, me at 9 years old, a child, like being, diagnosed as a type 1, and I wasn't overweight at that time in my life. I was just kind of like a normal looking kid. It was definitely like a huge shocker. My family did take it a little hard in the beginning. Like I remember when I came home from the hospital, I remember hearing my brother in the restroom and he was crying, and I had no idea why until years down the line when I had a conversation with my sister about it. And she said because everyone thought that we were going to lose you. So um, but it was definitely like a huge kind of like shock because no one really understood why, especially because there was no huge, we didn't have there was no, a lot of people in my family that were diabetic. So, and again, let alone with type 1 diabetes. So,
Right. It's more so like, how could this innocent child at 9 years old, who, I mean, you probably were in third grade or so, third or fourth grade.
fourth
Yeah.
grade.
And now today you're spending a week in a hospital. You come home, your siblings are like thinking, because as young people, you think someone gets sick, they're hospitalized, like, are they coming home to pass? Like,
Hmm.
seriously, it had to be a great traumatic experience for your siblings as it was for you, because there was so many things in your household that changed
Hmm.
from upon your diagnosis. It was like you were diagnosed with diabetes, but everyone else in your household was diagnosed with trying to do everything best to keep you alive.
Hmm. No, exactly. And that's exactly what that was. But again, as I mentioned, my mom being just a super strong person, she was like, she just took control of the situation. She shared with my siblings as much information as she could, to just kind of enlighten them about it because it was new to her too. So it was just kind of like a learning process for everyone, like for myself, for my mother. um, I feel like it was such a blur to me, like just my childhood years as a diabetic, because I still, my mother, she still wanted me to live a very normal life. You know what I mean? I did have moments in my life that were tough, especially when I got to high school and I'm wearing an insulin pump, and I want to go out with my friends and wear dresses, but I have this insulin pump. So my mother, she would like make little pockets and like things to my clothing to kind of like hide my insulin pump. But and
Look,
now there's so many different things, accessories that are available. But at that time,
those pouches and clothing today are selling like buku money. Come on, Miss Fashion Design, e-commerce, let's make it happen.
right?
Like,
It
give
was
'em-
just Yeah, and it was a lot of I think there was some shame around it too. Like I went through mom like I remember when I first started, I was on a mini med pump in 5th grade, and my mom came to my class and she spoke to my classmates about, me being a diabetic and me having this device and just being careful when we're out on the playground. Um and my 5th grade teacher, she had just been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, so she was more than, with okay with my mother coming to the class and speaking with everyone. But who wants to kind of be put on the front line? You know what I mean? So, and me, I was a very timid child growing up, so I wanted no attention. Like I wanted no type of attention at all. So I went through years where I didn't take care of myself. I didn't take my medicine. I didn't do anything, because I felt like it was easier to ignore it than to embrace it. And I think a lot what tied into that was just like embarrassment and shame, like I don't want to feel different from everybody else. I want to live a normal life, and it took me a while to kind of get out of that mindset.
Right. The
And
psychological
mhm,
effects of being diagnosed with a chronic health condition are real. That's why I advise in working in public health and helping many people living with chronic health conditions. Like I do strongly advise each doctor's office, emergency care facility to get a one pager in their office where they're like advising people to seek trauma therapy um and and all like in reality I believe that everyone that's diagnosed with a chronic health condition, because it's something new we none of us truly know about, something that's nonstop, such as type 1 diabetes, on upon diagnosis, we should be gifted the opportunity to get trauma therapy measures to help ease what is the burden of living with this chronic health condition.
I agree, like 1000%. I wish that was something that was more, I guess, talked about. I feel like now there's a lot more conversation around mental health and just the importance of mental health in
Mhm.
general, but especially when it comes to any condition, but especially a chronic condition. So I am with you like 1000%. I did see a therapist for a bit when I was in high school, but I just could not connect to this
Connect.
person who did not look like me, who was, 4 times my age, and there was just no connection. So that was something that I kind of, I, moved away from like very quickly. We had a few sessions and it just felt very awkward. It didn't feel natural, like the conversations. I felt like I was being interrogated almost, and it just wasn't a comfortable, situation for me as a child being 15, 16 years old.
Mhm.
What saved me was becoming a mother. What saved me, that shifted my perspective on life tremendously. Because when I became, okay, like living as a diabetic is one thing, but being
Right.
pregnant as a diabetic is
Oh, the hormonal and fluctuations that do occur, and you're not only managing like you have to manage your diabetes
Mhm. Yeah.
well, just so the just in conception of a child, like in those first few months, it's so intricate, like for you just to manage your glucose levels and numbers and stay on point with getting your routine checkups and the hormones that just take over.
Mhm.
Like it's not just what we see with like, okay, she's going through 9.5 months pregnancy and so imbalances are happening because she's a woman. No, you're a woman with diabetes now. Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And my and
Speak more about that.
yeah, like I mentioned, and I think you're really the first person that I've shared this with, but my kids saved me. My becoming a mother saved me, and my kids saved my life. And I'm so thankful to have, I've got through both pregnancies. Like everything was great. I had no complications. The only thing that I had with my second son was I ended up getting the swine flu. I'm sure you remember the
Oh
swine flu when
wow.
that was like a thing.
Uh huh.
And that was wild. I'm like a diabetic, pregnant, and I have the swine flu. So I was in the hospital for a week with that. But I was in, it just changed my perspective on life because now it's like I know that I need to take care of myself so that I can give my kids a chance at life. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah, and you were
And
training yourself through that pregnancy. And once the pregnancies were over, you continued that.
mhm,
So yes, your
yeah,
children actually did save your life. They made
yeah,
you getting on track for me, mom. And then it's going the things that you were doing to have a healthy birth with me are going to be instilled in you. So now after the birth, you can continue doing these things. Like there's
exactly.
no retracting.
Yeah, and it was a blessing in disguise. I was pretty young when I got pregnant with my first, and I was 21. So it was just such a blessing. And I thank them. Like I thank, the universe every day for allowing me the opportunity to become a mom so young because it shifted my perspective. And then even after, having my kids, it's like I need to be healthy so I can be there for them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want my kids to graduate high school and now it's time to start their lives and moving on to college and I'm here sick. And then my sickness slows them down, to progress in their life. So it's just been like this ongoing kind of, it shifted my perspective and I have a different appreciation for life and for my health, And yes, we have our ups and downs, as a diabetic, of course. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, technology has been it's been advanced. It advanced so much from the time that I was diagnosed to now. There's so many different tools, there's apps, there's all these things that has helped me manage my diabetes so much more like seamlessly. You know what I mean? Like, of course, I still have to put in the work, but yeah, but my kids, a huge blessing. And like I mentioned, I think you're the first person that I've shared that with. With them being just they saved my life, and I'm forever thankful and grateful for that.
Look, children do save each other, save our lives. Like literally, my daughter is 13 now, but when she was 6 going on 7, she literally saved my life. Like she found me unresponsive in a bathroom seizing, was able to contact my wife, and yeah, yeah, she literally saved my life. Like children do that because
Yeah.
it was because of that I actually changed my own management and the techniques that I was doing.
hmm
It's like I'm pretty sure during your pregnancies, you were forced to change the things that you were doing. You weren't just given insulin to stay alive anymore.
Oh no. And it
Like,
was incredible the amount of insulin that I had to take. I think I went through maybe 20 vials a month. It was insane. And this is doing manual shots. There was no insulin pump, there was no CGM, or I wasn't on an insulin pump. Everything was very manual. You know what I mean? But I'm like, if I can get through that, I know I can get through get through anything. And
anything.
anything. And, very grateful for my medical team because I think one thing that I've struggled with as a diabetic, which I'm sure you can probably relate to, is finding a medical team that you connect with. You know what I mean? Like for so long, I hated going to my appointments. I hated seeing the endocrinologist. I hated seeing um, um, like a nutritionist. You know what I mean? I would sit in the parking lot and just like, I would try to make up every excuse not to walk into those appointments, and now I have an amazing medical team and I look forward, like I'm excited. I'm like sending emails ahead of time, asking questions and things. So my perspective in a general sense has shifted a lot. And that's made me just appreciate life. And it's made me want to fight for my life so that I can go on to, again, like as I mentioned, like pivot into speech pathology, get through that schooling so that I can start that new career. You know what I mean? It's given me a completely different appreciation for life. And I'm very grateful that I've been given that opportunity by just the universe to be able to just shift that mindset, so that I can do all those things that I want to do. You know what I mean? And
I do.
accomplish. Mm-hmm.
You didn't mention you're talking about technology, and so I jotted down 3 things when you were talking about technology because it was probably 20 minutes or so ago in this conversation. where you mentioned you first you got a pump within your first year of being diagnosed. You said in fifth grade you had a mini med pump, and then so that's fifth grade, 10 years old, 10, 11 years old, but 11, 12 years later, you weren't using technology.
No.
So what what occurred through those 11, 12 years where you, Amanda, were not using technology? Because I mean, I know like upon your diagnosis and going back to school with a pump and everything, so many darts were thrown at you, probably from kids alone. And that's another thing. We need we need therapists to go into the school and be able to like even speak to children about chronic health conditions, because at any given time a child can be diagnosed with something, and it could be something such as diabetes, or it can be something like even more like dire, like,
Mhm.
but we do need that because we don't want, when a child like yourself goes back to school, for you to feel all those darts being thrown at you, fingers pointed, and you having to cover or hide your pump, maybe like even because back then you probably had to go to the nurse's office so often.
Yeah, to the principals, and I went to private school, so I was literally our principal. She was like the nun, like the school nun, and I had my medicine bag in her office, and I would just go in, and and everyone was very aware. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I didn't have to deal with any issues of like being bullied or like ridiculed at all because of the condition, and I think it was just more so because diabetes doesn't have it can be anybody, right? And you can't tell if someone's a diabetic by the way that they look. So I think because it wasn't something that was like visible, it just was never an issue. So I didn't have a problem with that. It was just more so like internal, like dealing with more internal things. But going back to your question, the reason why was just because I was ignoring it, and being on an insulin pump was a reminder of me being a diabetic. And so it was easier for me to ignore. I was on an insulin pump from fifth grade through almost through, I think through my senior year of high school. And then after that, I just I stopped because I just didn't want to deal with it. So for me, it was a reminder, it was a reminder of this condition that I hated that I had this. I hated that I had to deal with it every day. And again, it was just easier for me to ignore. And once I became 18, like, what was my mother going to do?
Right. What was she going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, all those years, I do recall. Like I don't think I was not taking care of diabetes. Like I just didn't feel as though diabetes was truly something I should even worry about. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's funny saying it today, knowing the technology and being able to have the access to all the numbers and everything in front of us. But like really, when I think about it, I'm like back then, diabetes, I had it, but it didn't have me. Like like I was still going to be the kid, the young teen, adult, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like no matter what, like diabetes, I had it. I mean, I knew I had it. Even
Mm-hmm.
people that I met for years didn't know I have it. Like
Yeah.
they did, and like people I worked with, and a lot of like things, like people I went to school with, like people I played sports with, they didn't know I had it. And I guess maybe my blood sugar was running so high at the time that because typically you can't like, other than like someone being angry or irate, having to go to the bathroom, blah blah blah, like you can't really see the highs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking that I was so high at a point in time, like in my life, that dang, how I just said that I was so high at a point in time. Disclosure: I do not do any drugs. Yeah, I was like so high during that point in my life
Mm-hmm.
that I wasn't, like, those didn't affect me.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 1000% because that was my mindset for a few years where I was just like, it's easier just to ignore it. Like I can go about exactly. There's people I've known for 10 plus, 15 plus years. And when they more recently found out that I was a diabetic, they're like, you've been a diabetic for all, I'm like, yes,
All my life.
all nearly my entire life at this point, you know?
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's not something you see. But again, once I took like just real control and, again, with technology shifting, there's so many different devices. Like, I'm like, you know what? I want to live a long life. I want to live a long, healthy life. I want to be able to just see my kids like get through college and have kids of their own and, experience what it is to be a grandmother at some point. Like I want those experiences. My grandmother, my mother's mother, she lived until she was almost 100 years old, you know, 100 and with very minimal health conditions. I mean, medical issues.
Mhm.
And, I want to be able to live a long life, a fruitful life. I want to feel accomplished. I want all those things, and I want to feel like, my time here was well spent. And I lived out my purpose. I walked in my truth that I was a great mother, friend. I was just a great person. I want to leave I want my legacy to be looked at as something just great and positive. So once you shift your mindset, that changes everything and it just makes you appreciate life so much more and that's where I'm at in my life, but again it's taken all these years, of being a diabetic, going through different things, um, you know working in the industry that I have and all these different things that I've been exposed to and people and experiences, and I'm like, I just want to continue to live a great life, so I want to do my part, as a human being, to give back in any way that I can, whether it's having a conversation with someone else who's newly diagnosed, and being able to connect with them and let them know, like, listen, you are not alone. There's a community out there just when you're ready. And also, I think the person has to be ready to like welcome those things into their lives, So once I was ready, that's when I felt like my life just became better.
Right. You went through elementary school, middle school, high school, post-secondary education, like all with diabetes. Um, do you know, like growing up, if you had like a 504 plan or IEP?
Mm-mm.
See,
No,
you had
I had none of that.
none of that. Everything like basically was set up for you to fail, but
Yeah.
you succeeded,
Mm-hmm.
achieved, and some people may say you exceeded and excelled and overachieved in life. So diabetes was there, like we said, but it
Mm-hmm.
didn't alter who you became as a person. Even though during those years, I'm pretty sure there were many times, the highs, the lows, even like relationships. Like diabetes truly does affect everything. It's nonstop.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I was valedictorian of my eighth grade class. And, like I maintained a 4.0 GPA like in high school, maybe like through my junior year. Because once my junior year hit, that's when classes got a little bit more challenging. Like I just never looked at it as something to hinder me in my growth at all, like because for me, like just living life, that was primary. But again, now being in, my 30s now, like my health is primary. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, if I'm not healthy, if I'm not taking care of myself, then I can't achieve all these other things that I want to in my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, today you can actually tell people, no, I can't do that
Mm-hmm.
because I have to worry about my own health first so that I can be here for another 63 years. So I can, yep, I did.
You did the math.
I did the quick math. Yep. Grandma, I'm going to catch you. Like, yeah,
That's
so
too funny.
yeah, doing everything you can. Look, if you think that's funny with those numbers, I got a whole list of numbers right here on the side of this paper because you've been
Mm-hmm.
saying some things and it's just keep correlating. Like everything you're saying, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, 28 years diagnosed,
Mm-hmm.
LA. You know the first thing that came to my head?
What was that?
You'll never guess.
Just tell me.
Tupac. 1996.
That's when I was diagnosed.
And you know what else you mentioned? One of the first things you mentioned in your first line, you said you were diagnosed at 9 years old, Cedar
Mm-hmm.
Sinai.
Biggie.
Biggie.
Biggie. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I
Yeah.
have it all here on the right side of my paper. Like
That's too
seriously. And then
funny.
I have circled in the middle LA Life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because those are some of my like iconic heroes. Like
Okay.
Tupac is my iconic hero.
Well,
And
I grew up with listening to Tupac and Biggie in the
yeah,
household. That was like my brother's, my
those
brother, he loved Tupac. My sister, she loved Biggie.
those are my
So,
guys.
yeah. So I know it's so funny that you mentioned, because I was thinking about that,
Mhm.
prior to this. I'm like, I wonder if he's going to make that connection with me being at
Look,
Cedar Sinai and Biggie.
look, I have a sheet of paper that I wrote right here, and that was the first thing I wrote down. A week in Cedar Sinai, then I put next to it Biggie.
That's
Like
hilarious.
serious, yeah. Because those are two things that actually help. Like how can I say it helped me? But like Tupac was my guy growing up. Like seriously, like I remember the night like he passed, and I
Hmm.
remember my older brother how he was like in tears and went outside and was like, I'm gonna have to mute this out, but he was like, I'm going to the block.
Oh,
But
wow.
that's how it
Hmm.
was, and like Tupac helped me get through so many bad times, good times. He's
Hmm.
always been here, like in my heart. Like I have a
Hmm.
bunch of tattoos, and my next sleeve I'm getting on my leg. It's in
Hmm.
honor of Tupac.
Wow.
Yeah, like I'm getting the Koval and Flamingo sign from where he was
Hmm.
shot gunned down. I'm getting
Hmm.
the last picture of him in a car, but I'm getting Suge Knight blocked out. Like I'm getting the West Side symbol. Like
Hmm.
that I have it all drawn out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I always say you can't have Tupac without Biggie. They were one and
Yeah.
one. Like
No, I'm fortunate that we lived in a time where we were able to see them, like
mhm,
and it's just so crazy when you think about how young they were when they passed. It's insane,
mhm,
absolutely insane. Like so much talent. Like I think I'm like, what would music be like today if they were still
mhm.
around and making music?
Just
So,
the accomplishments they were able to achieve at such a young age and the
mhm.
legacies they were able to leave for their families. So
Yeah, exactly.
they
No,
they
I agree 1000%.
right in the limited time that they did have here on Earth,
Hmm.
they used it to their advantage.
Hmm. Exactly.
Yep, yep. So growing up in LA,
Hmm.
how was it for you? Um, s- I'm pretty like I'm going to call you like the Central American girl
Hmm.
in LA. Was it like what I see in the movies?
What is it that you see in the movie?
When I see in the movies, look. First thing I see is like things such as Vato Locos Forever. Do you remember that? Like,
Yeah, you think
yeah,
of like the East
yeah,
LA,
yeah,
like the
yeah. I'm
East
thinking of
LA
East
vibe.
LA vibe, and but then I'm also thinking of like fashion and trends and like the big jeans with the baseball shirt,
Hmm.
button up shirts and everything, and just the sunniness and. But then you also think about things such as even before your coming of age times like Rodney King
Hmm.
and the Watts riots
Yeah,
and everything. So like your family has experienced all of those things.
yeah. And I have like some memories of that time, like not having power or like, making sure all the doors were locked and like literally everyone laying on the floor. Now we couldn't
Mhm.
even lay in our rooms, like in our beds, because you just didn't know what was going to happen. There was just so much. And I lived in Compton at that time. So you can imagine like there was a lot going on.
Mhm.
So but in terms of your idea of like this LA life, I mean definitely East LA, the whole I call it lowrider culture. That was huge. For me, it was very influential to me in my life. The lowrider art magazines, I don't know if you remember
I
those
remember
or
them.
yes. So the lowrider art magazines, I would like some of my friends at school would bring them and I would like can I borrow these magazines? And I would like draw the pictures. And that was very influential, like the Fila's and like the scrunchy socks and like, all of that. But growing up, I mean, definitely, I had my boys like pretty young, so I feel like a lot of my 20s was just spent, like just being kind of like, like a family woman. But in my times of just like going out, and I had a great time, like different concerts, and I worked on Melrose for a bit. So just being kind of exposed to
Okay.
kind of like that life, like the different celebrities that would come into the store that I worked at. Like it was great and it was fun.
Look,
So
you say you worked on Melrose for a bit, and look, that just
mhm.
made me add in. I forgot that. Look, 94 OJ.
I remember that too. I
Look,
remember I remember being in my living room watching it live with my dad. My dad.
look, I think I was in eighth grade at the time, and my world history teacher, Mr. Cheeseman, God bless his soul, he was like, we're turning the news on. I just heard that OJ's on the run, and we're watching it in class, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, and all you see is the Bronco on the highway.
hmm It was
Yeah.
so funny. I
Okay.
just remember like very vividly my dad, he was sitting on the living room floor with his legs crossed. I was sitting on the couch and we were just like watching. He had a cup of cognac in his hand and
It
we
was a
were just
movie
watching. Yeah, it was a movie.
for
It
a
was
few
such
hours.
And I just remember that's like the image that I have, like my dad sitting on the floor and I'm like behind him and we're just like watching OJ.
Look, was your dad cheering? Because at the time I was cheering, "Go OJ!" Like it's crazy, like when you think about it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it is
that's
crazy.
a big part of our history. They can't take it away from us. Like,
No, not at all. And like the
right?
fact that we remember watching that is just, it's
Yeah.
insane.
Look, it
But
was
well, I think it was just more like like what is going to happen? I think he was just like he was waiting for like a crash or something
mhm,
crazy.
serious. If they had like the betting like they have today, I'm pretty
hmm
sure it would have been like crazy.
Yeah,
Like, what is
exactly.
OJ about to do? Yeah, that's good times growing up in LA.
Yeah.
Now, did you have any friends that had diabetes at all?
No, I knew no one, not one person.
How long was it before you actually met another person?
Not until maybe like my, I would say like late 20s, early 30, at least a type 1. I did know type 2s. My mother actually found this support group for type 2 diabetics at this local, like a small medical center. And we would go every week. And I was the only type 1 diabetic. I was the only person who was like under 10 years old at this meeting. Everyone else, they were like in their 30s, 40s. So I connected with no one, but everyone was just so welcoming. Like it was fun for me, and even though I really didn't understand like different topics and things they were talking about, like I was still very present. I love the snacks that they served. So I felt like I went for the snacks. But
Did anyone ever look at you like, I can't believe this baby is taking insulin?
yeah, a lot of them were, and like sometimes we would do, they would do this thing like to intro the meetings, like how are you feeling today? So everyone would go around and kind of like speak on like how were they were feeling that day, and like I would say, oh, I'm feeling good, or oh, I had a test today, so my day was a little bit, was a little rough, and they were always so just I guess like open to how like I was feeling, and they gave me that space, even though everyone else was so much older. So, so that was great. But again, I didn't connect with someone with type 1 to maybe like my late 20s, like early 30s. Like not until like I really start to explore and look for community did I find people. And I'm just like, wow, there's just so many different people that are like me, similar interest, passionate about life. And then once I connected with them, I started to learn so much. I learned a lot just about different walks, different devices, different insulins, like just no idea. And I had asked myself, like, why is my doctor not sharing this knowledge with me? Like, why am I receiving this knowledge from the community and not from like these healthcare professionals?
Were you
I
seeing a
never,
were you seeing
mhm,
an endocrinologist?
mhm. But, and I would ask, and again, they would just give me, okay, we're going to increase this, we're going to increase that. But it was never like, oh, here's some resources, here's some support groups for type ones. Like, here's some things that are coming out, some new information. I feel like for me, I'm like, if I'm in a position as a professional, my goal is not only to, help my patient, but also to educate them and to help them. And I feel like I never got that. Not until I met my most recent endocrinologist, and he's been amazing. Prior to that, like different, doctors that I had, I feel like they never shared any knowledge with me. And I've to this day, I'm like, I don't understand. I'm like, were they not passionate about what they do or what they did? I just didn't understand.
Yeah, it makes me think like, okay, so after them, what are you supposed to do? Like, imagine
Mhm.
like one day something occurred or happened to one of them, those previous doctors, or their office like got shut down or anything, like, or you had to like with insurance, you had to stop seeing them. They
Mhm.
didn't educate you at that time on what you would do post leaving them.
No, not at all.
Like,
Like, not.
wow.
And I think that's why I've had such like just poor experiences with people in the medical industry in general. And I think that's why like a lot of anxiety that I would have like leading up to these appointments, it stemmed from that. I'm like, I've never had a doctor who I felt like was just that truly cared, like was passionate about what they do, but also that just really cares about their patient. I'm not treated as a number. And again, not until I met this current group that I have now, because my doctor's PA, she's a type 1 diabetic. So I usually rotate between seeing her and seeing him every 4 months. And she's been just like she's been like a godsend angel. Like, she's like, hey, Amanda, like, let's do this or let's try that. Or, hey, here's some resources. I'm going to email you. She's like extended herself to me. If you ever need anything, email me anytime and I'll get back to you at least within 24 to 48 hours. And she does, but again, I think that just goes to show like, just because someone has a title doesn't mean that they're good at what they do. You know what I mean? Like, just because someone has a title doesn't mean that they're passionate about what they do. And you can see the difference. Just like teachers, I'm sure different teachers that you've had growing up, you've had great teachers and you had teachers who just they couldn't control the classroom. I look at that as like with the medical, with medical professionals, just because you have this title literally does not mean anything. And I can tell right off the bat, that first appointment, I'll know if I'm going to continue seeing this doctor or if I need to call my medical insurance to switch to switch providers.
Yeah, it's that's how it is for the most part
Hmm.
in the medical industry. Everyone's being treated the same, even though we should be treated as individuals. Um, how do we change that? By speaking up and
Hmm.
everyone voicing how things are going on within their own care.
Hmm.
How do we get the medical professionals to look at us as individuals? Because it's not just happening I mean, it took me years to find a team that I currently have. But ahead of that, I know that I was just looked at as basically a number. And not only occurred with me, it occurred with you, it occurred with every guest that I've had on, where unless you are gifted the opportunity at the start to have a team that truly does care, like we go into a space where we think like, I guess this is how they all are. This is how we are supposed to be treated. And we're usually left, the medical professionals that treat us that way leave us with the mindset or mind frame that diabetes is just something that I have to keep putting a band-aid on.
It's super unfortunate, and I think that's when, and as you mentioned, you really do you have to become your own advocate, like you have to be an advocate for yourself. Before every appointment, I will either email my doctors ahead of time questions, or I'll have like, a note in my phone. I'm like, these are the things I want to discuss, and I want to make sure I get everything answered. And if they can't give you an answer right away, then I want to make sure that they at least follow up with me, so that way I'm holding myself accountable, but also like I'm holding my team accountable, right? To give me what it is that I need. So, and like I've been with my team now for about 4 years now, and it's made my life so much better, and it's shifted my mindset, um, the mindset that I had previous, because of the other poor experiences that I had. Like I felt like I was literally like reprimanded when I would go into these appointments, and I think that's what I feared. It's like, if you don't take care of yourself, like you are going to die. Like that was literally the message that I would hear coming out of their mouths.
Yeah, lose a limb, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So I'm just like, I had to, like I said, once you switch your mindset and you're like, you have to be your own advocate, like my mom can't accompany to these appointments anymore. It's myself, so I have the decision to choose which doctors I want to see. Like if I don't like a team, I can switch the team. You know what I mean? Like I'm paying for insurance. So it's like, there's a lot of control that I have. It's just owning it. You know what I mean? And just like, I think owning your power as a person, like with a condition, it's like, yes, you do need to lean into your team, but you also need to make sure that that I'm also, holding myself accountable for my own health, and again, speaking up. It's like, hey, like I saw, this, this special on TV about, XYZ. Do you think this is something that I could benefit from? Like more recently, I've been hearing talks about a lot of different insulins and different things that people are trying. So anytime I come across something new that I feel like may benefit me, I take a screenshot, I do a recording, I keep, record of that so I can bring it up in my conversation to my doctor, because not all doctors are going to share, they're not going to share new things with you. They might just like, okay, you're on this routine, it's working, we don't need to change it. But what if there's something better out there? Something better that you can benefit from and make just life easier.
I agree with everything you just said because I often think about like previously, like before being able to Google search everything and learn more about diabetes, how I fell into that rabbit hole of where whatever my doctor told me was what I had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And often, I mean, I didn't get the greatest results from it. So I do also think of like, how do people who are newly diagnosed or like parents of newly diagnosed children, even adults that are newly diagnosed, how do they know or how do they find out that the things that the doctor or NPR or PAs, whoever is tending to them or doing, aren't the things that are, I guess, advanced in today's modern society as far as technology, insulins, ratios, like how that's part of the like the one pager that should be in all offices, all clinics,
Mm-hmm.
because for the most part, when a doctor tells someone they have something, people don't do research on it. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, they hold so much trust and faith into what that medical professional is saying because they have the years of experience. They've been dealing with helping people manage their condition for so many years. We look at that white coat often as almost like a savior. Like, and if we were to go against them or if we were to question them, it may seem as though, like, almost as though we're going against their authority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like there should be, it's like, or even get a second opinion. You know what I mean? Like maybe this one doctor that you saw, they're probably giving you some sort of foundation, for your life, but there's so much, and it takes time, it takes experience. I mean, think about like you and I, like how long it's taken us to get to this point, but it shouldn't be that way, so even like what you've mentioned, like that one pager being in these offices, that should be like a staple, like these are the whatever resources, like, whether it's websites, if it's, Instagram pages, like social media, different things, like, especially within that person's community, because it's going to vary, right, based on where they're located. But I think it's really important. And then also just to kind of give the patient like the confidence, like, listen, you're going to be good. again, always advocate for yourself. If something doesn't seem right, it's probably not right. Be persistent, be consistent. If you're not getting the answers that you need, reach out, call, email. You know what I mean? And then again, if you need to switch providers, you have that option. You're not limited to this one person that you're seeing, right? So, but I think it's also just kind of like reminding patients of like their own power. And I think a lot of people, because they get so lost in this diagnosis, that they forget that. And I feel like people need to be reminded of like their power and of them just being able to take control of their lives.
People do need to be reminded of that, because we know that say someone is saying like, oh, if you do this, you can be gifted buku amount of money. People will take that and be like, okay, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to fill this out, fill these forms out so I can get this reward, right? So when we think about our lives and our health, as you've been talking about during this entire conversation, like even like how your children saved your life. When we think about our lives and our health, once we get the information, even if that means we don't get it until we go through childbirthing, but once we get that information ball, and it starts rolling and it starts building, we keep it with us, and we just want to learn more and more. And I hope that today, like more clinics, more medical facilities are sharing with their patients community. Like if you go to an endocrinologist's office that specializes in diabetes care and management, then you know that there has to be other people that walk through that door. So that if you're able to ask that clinic, like, do you have a community? Because they should have a community of people that are living with this health condition. So, I mean, they may not want you to interact with them in aspects of like sharing or comparing, like what's spoken to you in office, but that's not on them. You just want a community so that you can better understand first what it is living with this, especially someone who's newly diagnosed.
Yeah. With my son's, experience and the doctors, like his medical care team, which is of course is separate, since they deal with people under the age of 18. They've been amazing. Like they've shared great research. I've also asked a lot of questions, but I saw the difference between, and again, I know it's type 2, which is different from type 1, but I saw the difference in the information that was shared and how sensitive and empathetic, his healthcare team was to him, and I love that. And he's been with them since his diagnosis. So I do strongly feel like there has been a shift, especially from when I was diagnosed to now. But I still think it's really important, what I mean, to remind, these patients, even if they're under the age of 18, like the younger, the better, like just remind them, like, just always be an advocate for yourself, always ask questions, come in with questions, even if it's just one question, don't come in and just say, hi, I'm here. Let's go over my blood work and that, my blood test and that's it, make it worthwhile. So I've seen that shift and that's made me happy. But I also know, I had a friend she was misdiagnosed. She was diagnosed as a type 2 and she had type 1 diabetes. And for a year of her life, it was terrible for her. She was in and out of the hospital. So, I've seen how, yes, I've seen the shift, but, I've also seen where there's been some almost like neglect, not some doctors are not paying careful attention, and that can cost someone their lives. So I think at the end of the day, it's just being a reminder to be an advocate for yourself, which is really important. And if you don't have a community, then you create one. Create it for yourself. Even if it's an Instagram page, it could be a Facebook group, it could be anything. It could be a meetup group. There's a meetup app, where you can literally type in anything, maybe hiking and so on. You can create, there's people who create these things for themselves if they feel like there's a need. And I think that's really important, like just reminding people of these tools that they can utilize to not just make their lives better, but where they can also impact someone else's life in
Someone
a positive
else's.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. We have to, when living with a chronic health condition, there are so many different things that are pulling us this way and that way, like nonstop. So if we're able to, as people living with diabetes, just to put out that message, that note, whatever, that story, like this is something you can do to help better care or better management, someone's going to see it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's better to put the information out there in the world than to keep it inside,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that if someone was to have shared with me 20 some years ago, like the information and the resources uh just to get the modern technology and insulins that would have helped better me at that time. If someone was to tell you or was to show you, like, even before you were to decide on giving birth, that if you were to have learned these things earlier on in life, that diabetes isn't just reactor, like something you react to, that you have to actually implement steps to get to better control, better management. Like, you would have done that, like, or
Mm-hmm.
you would have considered it at least.
Exactly.
But many times we aren't given that option. But today we know, like, things are literally at our fingertips,
Yeah.
or I could just speak it out loud. Like, I can say, hey, I'm not going to say her name right now because the iPhone, my phone's right here, and then
Yeah.
she'll start saying things, but I could just call her name, or I can call out her best friend's name that starts with an A, and they'll tell me the things that I want to hear. Like, seriously.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah. Especially with, like, all these advances in AI, there's just, it's like, I feel like with technology, we have the opportunity to live these long lives. It's just taking advantage, being informed, educating our own selves, like taking accountability, like, of our lives, like just really being in that driver's seat. You know what I mean? And I just feel like, I'm very thankful for where we are now, but the work still isn't done, right? We just have to continue the work, continue these conversations, which are really important because they're needed, because you might have someone who they might think they know everything, but there might be something else like better out there, right? Whatever, it could be anything. Like I've listened to some talks, like panel talks from professors at UC Berkeley, and that was the first time that I heard about what a CGM was. And it's after that, that panel, speech that I heard, I emailed my doctor. I'm like, what is this CGM? And that was information that I heard from like a random channel, like KBS, some random channel on TV that no one watches. And it was impactful. So again, it's just continuing that work, but being open, right? Like just really keeping that mindset where you want to learn and you want to better yourself. And it's not going to stop. Like the advancements are not going to stop. It's only going to help us. So we have to keep up with it as well.
right. You're 28 years in, you're a seasoned vet. So, I mean, we can go back to, I'm pretty sure you had some like college years where things were like, wow, high school years where things were like, oh, like
Mm-hmm.
middle school years, like adolescence is coming on, and like so many different hormonal and fluctuations in middle school. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think of my daughter who's in seventh grade. If diabetes was thrown at her, I'm like, oh no. like like nah, like pretty sure over your, like, just over the last 28 years, you can have stories on top of stories, chapters on top of chapters. um Relationships, has diabetes affected any relationships you've been in, whether it's friendship or intimate?
You know, my first experience, and this kind of like scarred me for life. I remember it was my freshman year of high school, and I went to my first high school dance, and I was on a mini med pump. And I remember I had met up with my like childhood crush from like second grade because he ended up going to the high school that was hosting the dance. And I remember I disconnected my pump, I put it in my purse, and then I put my purse underneath the bleachers. Well, after the dance, I went to get my purse. There was no purse. I had no pump. It was a very traumatic experience. So I called my mom. I'm like, Mom, this happened. She was like, I'm going to pick you up. We'll call the school tomorrow so we can just report the issue. Because at that time it was late. It was like a Friday night. So, or then that following week. And, we just said, if someone finds this device, it's my daughter's medical device. Please make sure that they turn it in. Well, after that, I guess there were rumors that spread around the school about this medical device. And it was in my purse. I had my school ID in there, and he stopped talking to me after that situation. So that incident in my life, it impacted just my ability to talk about and share me being a diabetic with anyone. Not just, romantic relationships, but also just friendships, because I felt like I was going to be looked at, as,
The
someone with
diabetes girl.
yeah, literally.
Yeah, like cooties.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just and it took me many, many years to get over that, many, many years. I think once I started using medical devices again, I was on a CGM and I went back on an insulin pump. That's when I became more vocal, and I'm like, listen, I have to be, and it was in my 30s, so I was like, I have to accept myself for who I am with the devices, and I began to speak more openly about it. And then I felt like I was just really living in my truth, but again, can you imagine being 15 years old, 14, 15 years old, that incident happened, that traumatized me for the rest of my life, up until the point I got into my early 30s. And I'm like, you know what? I am who I am. If whoever I'm with, whoever I'm dating, my friends, my coworkers, it's okay for me to talk about this and to own it because it's a part of me, So it impacted in the sense of where people just didn't know, just like how you mentioned, there's people you've known for 10 years, 15 years who didn't know that you were diabetic. So it wasn't something that I talked about. But now that I'm wearing these devices that might go off, I have to talk about it. And I felt okay I was nervous in the beginning to, kind of open up. But once I did, I felt like so much changed for me. I felt like I was finally just living in my truth, but again, it took me many, many years to get to that point. But I'm thankful that I'm here now. And I'm even thankful for that experience because it was something that it helped me, And then it also helped me realize that, there's just some people that they're going to be ignorant to things. And it's my job to educate these people, right? So there's going to be some people that are going to be like, you have diabetes. I just, they might have, some type of negative thought about it, but it's not my job to control what someone thinks about me. You know what I mean? It's just, I can only control how I feel and my reaction. And if I get that energy from them, then I know that I need to separate myself from those people because they're not going to serve me at all in my life. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
but now, I feel very comfortable talking about it. It's a part of me. It doesn't define who I am, but it's a part of my life.
Right. And we know that all of those things that how people treated you in the past was based off of just stigmas. And we know that we need to erase all of those stigmas, destigmatize them, because when we look at the world today as we are in it, and we're living, we're thriving, we're raising children and building communities in the world we live today, that everyone should be accepted for just being who they are, because we can't change. We cannot change and alter the body that we're in. This is us. You either going to love us or hate us, be it all seriously. And it's not our job to make sure that our friend from second grade many years later is okay with our new body. Seriously, it wasn't your job to tell him that you had this pump, that you didn't have to do any of that. Even today as an adult, you don't have to tell anyone that You have a pump, you have a CGM. You don't have to, but if you choose to, then that's all on you. So I do want to like speak that into existence because so many people today, I've spoken to young people who have sensory issues, and they're like, I can't wear a CGM or a pump, but I do know like later on in life, like they're like, I'm going to try this because they see people like you and I who have destigmatized what it is to be living with diabetes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, I do want to make a great transition. I always do this near the end.
Okay.
Um, you try to break in on this in the beginning. You try to tell me everything. I don't even think you got my hint. I was like, you didn't even get my hints. You were just going, and I was like, I'm just going to let her keep on going. That's why put in. I said, I interjected and was like,
Mm-hmm.
and I mentioned like, okay, we're going to get to that. We're not because I always wait to the tail end to ask
Mm-hmm.
about something that truly begins our journey.
Mm-hmm.
Can you recall your diagnosis and that diagnosis story?
Yes, I know we touched on this briefly, but I remember it being like late November, of 1996, and everyone had the flu in my home. Everyone was sick, and I was the only one who did not get better. I think I was sick with the flu for maybe almost a month. And my mom had already taken me to the doctor. So that final time she took me to see my pediatrician, he's like, you need to take her right now, or she is not going to make it. And as soon as they took me in, I was admitted right away. The only thing I remember, I did spend Christmas in the hospital. So I remember it being fun for me because there were groups going around like giving presents, and there was like a big,
It
you
was all
know,
about you.
yeah, it was they had a big Christmas kind of banquet, for like the kids, which was really sweet. And I remember my time in the hospital it wasn't difficult. I remember being picked and pricked a lot. My family came to visit me, but it wasn't a terrible experience. And then after that, just my life began as a diabetic, so, and my mother, she was actually diagnosed about a year she was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So my mom and I, we kind of shared, you know, we were very newly diagnosed around the same time, and we kind of shared, the journey together a little bit, So again, very different because she was taking pills. I was, doing injections before I got on the insulin pump. And but we did change. There was a lot of changes in the house, but I think things didn't really get more challenging for me until I got to maybe like my teenage years. But up until then, I felt like I was just a normal kid. My family, like I mentioned, they treated me the same. Maybe just a little bit more careful since I was the youngest, and this was something like new. And um, but but yeah, that was like my diagnosis story, and it's just I'm just thankful to be where I am now, like all these years and the ups and downs and the trials and tribulations, but to be where I'm at now and just to be just thankful, for my journey.
Yeah. Like I said, you were diagnosed at 9 years old, fourth grade. Um, my youngest son is in the fourth grade today.
Hmm.
And I know that at the heart of the pandemic, like I would check his blood sugar to make sure, because like kids were doing virtual learning for so long, and I'm watching him daily. Like I'm like, you're using the bathroom too much. Let me check your blood sugar. So I ended up, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, TrialNet.
No.
So
Mm-mm.
trialnet.org, I was going to wait till the end to share this with you. They'll go on trialnet.org. They'll send you a kit where you can do a finger prick and send it back to them, or you can actually go into a lab pour with this, and you can get it done there. But it'll tell you the auto antibodies that you have for type
Hmm.
1 diabetes. Um, Even if someone's not diagnosed, like you can even get like your son checked to see if he has any of the auto antibodies.
Okay.
So if you have any of those autoantibodies, like I think it's like two,
Hmm.
there's like a 98% chance, I believe that is, that along sometime somewhere along in your lifetime you will develop type 1 diabetes. And gratefully, my son didn't have any of those markers. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's nice.
it's free, trialnet.org.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
and
gonna have
if
to.
even if you don't know the autoantibodies that you have,
Hmm.
you can get the kit and send it back, and they'll tell you the autoantibodies that you have.
Okay. No, that's great. I've never heard of that before. So
Mhm.
I'll definitely, and I've always, just me being a diabetic, and I know on my kids, they're on their father's side, there are a lot of type 2 diabetics, so that's why we were always so just keeping a close eye on the boys like every year with their checkups and just getting all the blood work done literally every year, like checking their A1C. Um, and everything was pretty good up until the point where my youngest was diagnosed. But I'm definitely going to look into that for my oldest, so we can just continue keeping a close eye on him.
And upon that diagnosis at 9 years old and going back to school, did you feel different at all?
No, not at all. Like I felt like I was just, I was out of school for about a month. So there was definitely like an adjustment, but I felt just like my normal self. Like I didn't feel any different. Like yes, I knew that I had to go to the office and like check my blood sugar and take my medicine, but aside from that, like I didn't feel any different. I went to a private school, so my our classrooms were very small, like the max maybe 25, under 30 kids,
Mhm.
so I think that was also something that helped me a lot, like growing up, because I didn't go to, public schools where there were probably like hundreds of kids per class. And I think that would have probably been a little bit more challenging for myself. But with my school, it was a very like a family oriented environment. Like everyone knew everybody. And I was there from kinder to eighth grade. So
No.
yeah, so I was there for me, even by the time I was diagnosed, I was already at the school that was like my fifth year at the school. So all the teachers knew me. If anything, I felt like I was just embraced. Like everyone would look out for me. The teachers would check on me. So I felt like I had a really great like school experience. I didn't have any bad like experiences at school, like at all. So um, I think it just became a little bit challenging once I was in high school, which makes sense because there's just, those are changes, right? Like now there's, you want to start dating, you start caring about the way that you look. And I went to an all girl high school, which was also helpful because there were no boys around. And, I didn't have to worry about like what I look like. And again, a private school. So, very just tight knit environment. And I'm just fortunate. Like I never had any like crazy episodes or like my blood sugar just like dipped super low in class or I felt super shaky. And even if I didn't feel too well, like all my close friends, they knew and they knew what to do. They were there to help me or at least take me to the office. So I'm fortunate to like have had like a very normal, like just childhood experience, like when it came to my diabetes. Um,
Right. And that started off from
mhm,
the beginning of your journey where your mom just took it on.
mhm,
And your mom, for many years, she was the person living with type 1 diabetes. You
yeah.
had it, but she controlled it.
Yeah, she was my advocate, So again, that's why I am the way that I am with my son. Like, I'm asking all the questions and, doing the research and doing what I can, you know what I mean? And I think that's really important. And, I think with my mother's background, just working as a physical therapist for handicapped kids, like she kind of already had some tools, you know what I mean? Like she was already set up with tools. And I think her helping me, through my childhood it made it easier for her, to ask those questions because she's like, I'm dealing with these healthcare professionals on a daily basis with her own patients. So I think that just made it easier.
Right. So, on that note, I do have a question for you. And I
Yes.
ask everyone this question. So imagine this, uh, magical diabetes unicorn came down to this earth, sprinkled its diabetes be gone fairy dust all over the place. And diabetes is magically eradicated like vamoose, like it's gone. You don't have to think about it. It's gone. You wake up, it's gone. Everyone around the world is cheering. Diabetes is gone. Throwing away the insulin, throwing away the insulin. And you're like,
No.
like Macaulay Culkin on Home Alone. Like you're throwing away the insulin. Like on that day, that a true cure is here. Not a cure in the sense of, okay, we are getting like stem cells, embryonic stem cells implanted, and no, not that kind of cure. Not a cure in the sense of we have a insulin pump that also gives glucagon. No, a cure in the sense where diabetes is gone, like it's eradicated.
Mhm.
What do you, Amanda, do on that day?
I'm probably going to a buffet in Las Vegas and I'm going to eat every single thing that my little heart desires. I would probably celebrate with an amazing meal, lots of wine, and not thinking about carbs at all. That would be my form of celebration because as food, there's restrictions in a sense, in a large sense, so there's not going to be that thought for me. I'm going to just eat, I'm going to have all the desserts I want, and I'm going to just celebrate. And, who doesn't want to celebrate over a great meal with some great company?
Right. Like diabetes is gone. Like it don't like I remember the first time I asked this question to someone, like
Mm-hmm.
it almost like brought a tear to my eye, like just thinking about it, because we know living with diabetes, your earlier years, like it may have not been a burden on you, but as you get older, you know that it does become a greater burden
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, not only is it just you managing it and only you that truly know about it and the ins and outs of your own body, but just as we want to grow healthier,
Mm-hmm.
have and having the advancements of technology that are in front of us, that too plays a heavy toll on our mental. So
Most definitely.
just to mentally be able to free ourselves, our minds, our hearts, our wallets of
Ugh.
diabetes.
Don't remind me. Between
Like,
me and my son, you don't even want to know how much money I spend every 90 days. It's
look,
wild.
and what technology does he use?
He's on a CGM. He's on the new. He's on the 7, the
Okay.
Dexcom 7. I'm not on it yet because I'm on an Omnipod and it's not compatible yet. So I'm like waiting for them to make
Mhm.
some type of update, because that cut expense in
Mhm.
half because now we don't have to order a transmitter and the sensors.
Right.
It's just like a 2-in-1. So, but yeah, that's all that he's on. So everything else that he does take some injections, and then he takes his pill, like his metformin. So, but his doctor has reduced his dosage a lot, which is great. So she's trying. The goal is to wean him off the insulin, and then he just take, the pills, and then eventually just control it with diet and exercise. So
Okay.
that's the goal. And I have to remind him, I'm like, yours can go away or yours can be controlled, right? With diet
Right.
and exercise. I'm like, unfortunately, like I don't have that luxury, So even you asking me that question, that like, you know, it definitely, you can't help but just get a little emotional thinking of like, wow, like imagine if one day this were to happen and there's no more diabetes. Like how amazing would that be? Because it really does impacts
Single thing
every single part of your life. There's not
ever.
a minute that I don't think about diabetes. I'm constantly looking at my app, like, how's my blood? Even before this meeting, I was at 69. So I'm like, let me go get a Coke real quick. And I'm like sipping the Coke before, before hopping on here. So it impacts everything and you don't realize it, but it really does. So, but, you know, I'm thankful and I'm grateful for the experience because it's allowed me to appreciate life a lot differently, So even though, of course, like who wants to deal with this, but it's made me be more so empathetic And I think, diabetes is a huge reason why I empathize with so many different people, like differently, because it's like I'm going through my own battle on a daily basis. So I'm like, I need to be empathetic about, towards people who are everyone's going through a different battle, whether it's like a mental issue, whether it's, a different type of condition, like everyone's going through something, so I think being empathetic and then just being patient, and just really trying to just promote love and peace, which is so important because, without it, you know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? Like, what world are we creating without really exercising empathy and love and peace? It's just so important. You know what I mean? So that's what diabetes has taught me. And I'm forever grateful for the experience. Yes, there's been challenges, but would I change it? I wouldn't. I'm thankful for my life, and I'm thankful for these ups and downs over the last 28 years.
And on that note, Amanda, I do know what you mean. And yes, living with diabetes is a great burden on us. When we think about not living with diabetes, I also think about like how would that affect me also mentally, because I've lived so much of my life with it. It's like the best friend I never wanted. But if it ever were to go away, I'll maybe lonely without it. Like at times, like I may miss those late night calls. Like seriously, that would be a whole nother psychological aspect to living with a chronic health condition, and that trauma therapy would be needed as well.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, think of it, that's the whole foundation of this podcast.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So would there even be this without diabetes?
Right.
So
The 12 steps without diabetes. Thank you for joining me on the Chronically Will podcast, where we hold real conversations with community that need to be heard.
Thank you, Will. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you equally.
All right.
And when I'm out in LA, I'll come and ask for a cup of sugar.
Yeah, sounds good.